There's nothing better than you talking about your brand and getting that shelf space with the customer than another incredible brand talking about your brand.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and welcome to How They Scaled It, where scaling is done with both sides of the brain. On this show, we sit down with growth stage businesses and speak to founders and industry leaders from e-commerce, SaaS sectors, and more. We showcase their journeys, unpacking the pivotal moments, marketing strategies, and key decisions that shaped their success. Today, I'm bringing on Chris Doyle. Chris is the president and CEO of Build, a financial solution company that empowers subcontractors across the U.S. I wanted him to help us understand niche market innovation and strategies for scaling a specialized financial services company. Chris is a practical innovator and an advocate for contractors, driven by a belief in empowering growth through transparent and specialized financial solutions and long term partnerships. Chris, it is great to see you, and welcome to How They Scaled It.
Thank you. Excited to chat today.
Amazing. To start out, could you just tell me why you founded Build and what the original purpose was?
Well, at why I founded I want to start a company. I want to start a company. I was busting at the seams, and I think most founders, and not just founders, but anyone with the entrepreneurial spirit, their mind is constantly running on, well, that's inefficient.
Yeah.
We should do that. We should do that. And um, at the end of the day, it takes a compelling idea and then someone that wants to put some muscle behind it and then capital. And sometimes those things are not all aligned.
Hmm.
You have a compelling idea, but it competes with another,
Yeah.
it's just not the right time for the muscle. But even when those two match, which often find a match, you need capital as well, especially
Hmm.
in a financial product. And it just so happened that I had a really great relationship with our private equity
Hmm.
firm, which is our primary sponsor at Build, and was at another portfolio company when this opportunity came up. So it was really the right time for all three, and so started the company.
Yeah. No, I always, whenever I talk to founders, there's always this element of the stars aligning. Like you have to have the right idea at the right time with the right backing in order for it to all kind of like come together. Um, when you think about the original vision for Build, what beliefs or assumptions did you have at the beginning that have changed over time?
Um, You know, not a lot as far as assumptions around the business.
Hmm.
Sorry, about the problem that we're solving. A lot, certainly, a lot of things as we stand 6 years from now, from starting the business, are quite different. But it's actually interesting when you think about how some of the core things were right.
Yeah.
And I remember making decisions like, what should the term be? What should this be? How should we go to market? And it was just like a 15-minute interval of talking about it with a co-founder. It's like, let's do that. And now I
Hmm.
spend like 8 months figuring out comp plans, and it's
Yeah.
like we should just be able to make decisions much faster. And so, no, I do think a lot has changed, but honestly, with the pain point was well known to me,
Yeah.
and the co-founder, Jesse. And so it was really a matter of how we solve it profitably, and how we
Mhm.
solve it in a way that we could distribute the product across such a large industry.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. It sounds like the problem hasn't changed necessarily, but I mean, you guys went through COVID, and that must
Yep.
have changed the entire industry and the entire landscape that you were working within. How do you feel like COVID changed the way that you approached Build and these financial solutions?
It didn't a lot, and mostly because we were so early.
Hmm.
I don't remember the stage, but we had certainly had several million outstanding in financing, and the I guess the modern economy has just never had this scenario before. And so in a risk management business, it's the first thing you do is lock everything door, like
Yeah.
lock all the doors, lock all the windows,
Yeah.
right? And and then advocacy, right? So the first thing, like, hey, just be very careful about the deals that we're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
then advocacy for our customer to say, hey, make sure that your business is healthy here and do not take any unnecessary risk because, especially the first few months, there was a lot of uncertainty,
Yeah.
and you have a fixed cost base. Most subcontractors they pay their labor as a fixed
Mm-hmm.
cost, right? So they're either salary or direct contractors that are 100% tied to that company. And so I think that left our customer with a situation where they're going, I cannot pay this. I do not. It was a pretty short amount of time because construction was essential workers. But there was a lot of uncertainty at the time, and we were just out in the market saying, do not sink the ship. Make sure that your company survives. And I think everyone after the fact is saying, like, thank goodness we just survived. And some had much tougher troubles than we did. But that advice was like constantly to our customers. But we were really fine. We did not have a lot of costs. We had really great guidance from our board, and from a credit perspective, it did not have any impact. In other words, we didn't have any increased like delinquencies or losses or anything like that.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I suppose that the way that build is structured, um, there is some risk, but ultimately, like you said, contractors were or construction is a essential worker. So I guess that really played in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing to us is that our customers are in good financial health.
Yeah.
And however we can achieve that through opening working capital, through, content on sharing best practices, because, we have a lot of people with construction experience. I've been in construction for 25 years, but you know what? I've also never run a $40 million subcontracting business. So I actually
Right.
don't know, but
Yeah.
we have a lot of customers that do know. And so giving them a platform to share that information is super important to us. And I always say, like, if you ever look at our content, you'll actually find that very little is directly from us. You'll see some from me, and you'll see
Mhm.
some from the co-founder and a few others that are very experienced in the industry. But we never try to come across. I'm quite cautious about this, like that we know because we
Mhm.
actually don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like someone or a contractor doing $1 million in annual revenue is going to have a very different experience than someone doing $40 million in revenue. So you really got to kind of bridge that gap between those. There's a lot of different variants that you probably need to cover.
Yeah, and I think in all aspects, it is really important for us. I think this is why we've been successful is
Hmm.
that we don't talk to our customers like they're idiots. And a lot of people look at construction and they think, okay, owner operator, not potentially not a Harvard MBA, Stanford
Right.
MBA, former banker. You don't see a lot of ex McKinsey, buy an electrical contracting business. But these guys are like serious entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
and we treat them as such with that respect. And we know that there are always going to be gaps. We have gaps, they have gaps.
Hmm.
So we're trying to serve those with content.
Yeah.
And especially if you hit certain inflection growth moments in your business, it's just really for any business, right? And certainly with our customer, that they have support and really know what that horizon looks like.
Hmm.
That's what a lot of our stuff is focused on. I don't
Yeah.
think I answered your question at all, by the way. I just started talking about this stuff.
No, no, that all makes sense, and it actually kind of leads me into another question I had around staying transparent. I know with Build, transparency is really important to you, and you want to treat your customers with the respect that they deserve as really these like savvy businessmen. Um, but there, you are introducing a brand new concept. Build is not something that is also out there a million different ways. It's Build is a very unique solution, and so when you're introducing these new financial tools um, how do you guys approach that education to make sure they understand exactly what they're getting and how they pair build with their other working capital solutions?
And that's been the biggest evolution of our business and how we talk
Yeah.
to our customer. When we first started the business, most B2B lenders have the pure play. Well, first of all, there's either a bank,
Hmm.
which is a direct relationship with the business, their banking partner. they have a banking person that, there's an ongoing relationship. And one day they say, look, let's give you a line of credit. And then everybody else is this like digital flow where you have a go to market, all digital go to market. And similar like a credit card, sometimes a paper, sometimes, direct mail, but it's normally an online flow. And that's like capturing the customer.
Yeah.
And then there's some encouragement at some point, different promotions or whatnot for you to use the product. And we tried that, right? So some of this is how you would draw it up on a whiteboard. You say, well, this is the most effective go to market. And we found out very quickly that the process it didn't just take education of what we are, but also how to properly use debt to run your business and solve for
Mm-hmm.
working capital. But also, how do you properly include that cost of your weighted cost of debt, cost of working capital into your bid, such
Mm-hmm.
that great if things work out where you get paid early, right? That just adds to your net margin. But if not, then you're not. It's not eroding into your margin.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think this is probably pretty well known that margin in construction is slim.
Yeah.
So you have generally you're looking at around 35% gross,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you define gross, and some number between 5 and 10 net profit as a subcontractor. And so you have opportunity to increase that through operational efficiency, procurement
Mm-hmm.
and material, there, your management of the general contractor, right? So it's like if your productivity is a certain amount and they're not giving you that space to perform the work, or like you have to be a little more rigid. There's always that opportunity, but you're not always dealt with the best cards in that way. So
Right.
it's really important for us to make sure that our customers maintain margin.
Right.
So again, I'm probably not answering your question fully. Um,
Well, no, I think that what I'm hearing is that you guys really approach it from a partnership perspective. So you're not coming in and telling your customers, we are replacing all of your cash flow needs. Like everything is going to come through build. What you're saying is there's a really smart way of doing this because you can't just have like one working capital solution. You really should have a bunch of different tools. Build is one of those tools, and we can help you kind of figure out the best way to like work your margin and work your timelines so that you're getting more and you can start growing. Because I think with build, it's about allowing people to grow more efficiently.
Yeah, and you just can't do all those things through a digital process. So
Yeah.
we've pivoted to this. We have an active sales team that's bifurcated for the most part of the initial process of getting approved, your first few projects, and then typical to other companies, you have someone that owns the relationship
Yeah.
thereafter, and making sure that they're all communicating the same principles has been an
Hmm.
important near-term evolution on exactly what you just said, which is, and this is always the tricky part about financing companies,
Hmm.
is that you can't just like grow 100% year over year. It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
You can, but you'll go out of business, and there's
Right.
lots of evidence of that. And so it takes a very, I wouldn't say conservative, but just
Mhm.
mindful growth scale. And our evolution from a go to market and a relationship with a customer has been like quite significant in that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we have such high repeat usage,
Yeah.
right? Year over year, that's a testament to that go to market being successful.
Yeah, I mean, and just a proven product. Like this is something that works for people. Once they figure out what it is, it just
Yep.
makes a lot of sense for
Yep.
them to keep using it.
And it's not just them, the customer that has to figure out what it is.
Mhm.
There's, our product can affect other stakeholders in the on a project.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a learning curve for the entire industry. Not to say that we've touched, the entire industry just yet. We're still, come a long way, but we still have a lot
Yeah.
more to go in a, $1.5 trillion industry. But other what we would call like a project stakeholders, architects, general contractors, property owners, et cetera, banks,
Yeah.
them being aware of what we are when we are introduced on a project has also been a learning curve.
Yeah. Were there any kind of unexpected strategies or feedback that you got when you're kind of thinking about the way you approach relationships with the subcontractors and those other stakeholders?
I mean, a little bit, but this is where my experience in construction has been really helpful.
Yeah.
It is hard to find a team of people that have experience in construction, right?
Yeah.
Because our business, fundamentally, we are not building anything from a structure standpoint.
Hmm.
We're a technology and financing
Yeah.
and payments business, right? And so finding people that have that experience is tough. And it's everyone always says that construction is a relationship business
Hmm.
and industry, and it is, but that relationship goes two ways. And I know that well, and I know what it's like to knock on doors, metaphorically, um, for years to get a general contractor's business,
Hmm.
then stub our toe on that project and, kind of have your tail between your legs.
Yeah.
But then also them, kind of push around a little bit and say, you know what, that's not right. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent or Mrs. Project Manager or whatever.
Yeah.
We're actually, look, we're going to show up. We're going to show up and get our work done. We're going to get it on time, safely. We're going to do all the things, but you got to get this shit out of the way. You got,
Yeah.
and same thing with payments, which is the main problem that we're solving for. I know what it's like to go to a general contractor and say, yeah, I knocked on your door for 2 years, but you're going to still pay me. It doesn't work that way. You can't just
Yeah.
string me out. I did my part of this. Now you need to do yours. And so that understanding is really important with our customer.
Yeah.
So we expect that they have that conviction with their customer, but they need to have the same with us. And they know that we will not back down in this way. It's like, look, we're here to support you. This
Hmm.
is our role in your business, but we're not anything more than that. We're going to enable you. This is your part,
Yeah.
right? And that being instilled within the organization is super important. And you hear it, it did take some calibration with the team.
Hmm.
I'd just hear a call and go, nope, our customer's not going to talk to us that way. Or more importantly, I'd say, you will not talk to a customer that way, right?
Right.
Because this is our mistake. This is what happened, right? It's so
Yeah.
having that conviction across the organization has been really important. And I think our customers recognize it, right? You hear other, I wouldn't say competitors, but
Hmm.
players out, in the space, including just pure play technology companies that, aren't competition in any way. You
Hmm.
can hear the way they talk to the customer, and there is just a fundamental difference
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah, I think that finding people who have experience in the construction business who would in a former life be the avatar or, a potential customer of Build was a really smart way of understanding how to bridge that gap and talk to them the way that they're used to and understanding the construction industry is a complicated space. There's a lot of different players involved. But that seems to have really paid off when you think so that kind of covers the relationship side. On the technology side and the data side, how have you guys used data analytics to drive your decision making process and change your products to be more effective?
Yeah, in a very powerful way. So I'm going to answer this a long way. You may have to remind me of the question halfway through.
Of course.
Uh, we and I'll just brag for a moment. We just closed on a new facility with an institute and I won't mention the name just yet
Mhm.
because the press release hasn't come out, with a major financial institution. And the way that works, typically like a warehouse line, you might get a private facility somewhere, and then you evolve to a line like this. And the next level of evolution is securitization. Normally there's a rating agency,
Mhm.
right, that rates the asset. And so we just closed this facility, which is the first time that institutional capital has been put to work solving for commercial construction supply chain finance dysfunction. And that is the building block of efficient capital flowing into the industry that even if build is unsuccessful, others will build on top of to make the supply of capital um, higher volume and at lower cost. And we're super proud of that. Now, how do we get there? We got there by taking a super innovative approach with how to assess the customer, the risk,
Mhm.
which was based less on the customer itself and more on the project, the general contractor, and other attributes that all tie into the project ecosystem.
Hmm.
And we are able to, it's effectively, and I always say this, we will provide the right amount of all the working capital a customer needs, a real subcontractor on a real project needs. And so we've developed the right exposure limits, things like that,
Hmm.
to make sure that we can always do that. But we've collected, we're collecting hundreds of attributes on every financing that we have based on the project, the property, all these things, and got some pretty compelling data that shows how do we put capital to work here in the
Hmm.
most efficient way at low loss rates, right? That's what we're trying to avoid is loss rates. And we have a lot of IP on this too.
Yeah.
We've got I think 10 patent applications. One has been issued, and this is like the most powerful thing of our business that we can now build on, right? It's
Hmm.
like we don't need to reinvent anything. We can just keep feeding that data. It's super compelling.
Yeah. Yeah. So um, I think you said a lot of really interesting things. One of the kind of cool things, just as a founder, is to be so disruptive in an industry that you almost create a sub industry. So having something that maybe build doesn't last forever. I hope it does. I hope that it continues to grow and scale. But you're kind of opening the door for other similar companies to come in and really make a better world for construction
Yep.
and make it cheaper to do construction and make more money from it, which is incredible. And it's also probably something that people can kind of study and apply to other industries that aren't getting the right kind of financing options for the way that their industry works.
Yep.
So it really opens a lot of doors, which is something to be proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we certainly are proud, and I hope the team is as well.
Yeah. When you think about your marketing strategies over the years, what has been the most effective in getting the word out about build and driving growth?
Well, I think from the early days, and this is something that and I'm going to go off script here, all
Yeah.
founders struggle with, which is what do they think? Okay.
Yeah.
And what do investors think? What advisors think? What does your CMO, what does your head of sales think? And especially early, you're trying to do everything so sophisticated. You're trying to
Yeah.
like, well, we have this thing, it scales and blah, 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 like all these like fancy stuff. But at the end of the day, what is the most effective is tricky. It's like it's just that. What's most effective? And it's hard to test everything.
Yeah.
And you tend to start at the very top of your McKinsey list. And so if I were to draw that up, I can just flip that around, and that's the most effective.
Hmm.
Unfortunately. Uh, early days, again, very digital, right? And we
Yeah.
found that customers would come on, they didn't know what the product was, they didn't know what we were, and they didn't realize what they just signed up for. And so that's why I said we kind of flipped that upside down to a much heavier touch process
Hmm.
to onboard the customer. And so if I talk about marketing strategies, the call it the direct performance side isn't. I mean, it's helpful to raise awareness,
Hmm.
but what we found more than everything, it's all multi-touch, right? So
Yes.
we can serve that ad all day long, but it doesn't really do anything for us from like a direct perspective. I mean,
Hmm.
sure, sometimes someone clicks on an ad and they come to our platform, they sign up, we call them and they convert.
Yeah.
That does happen. But what we found more than anything is we really have to do lots of different things. We have to do brand awareness, we have to do direct response, we've done some direct mail, we're
Hmm.
out in the industry. What has probably been most effective is that out in industry, or what I
Yeah.
would call in territory, not just industry.
Hmm.
So we're at an event, we talk to a supplier says we should talk to this customer of that mentioned you guys the other day. And now is that the most scalable? Well, that you get a flywheel there
Hmm.
when your reputation gets out there and you start, getting really great partners and things like that. But it is mostly reputational. It's mostly
Yeah.
boots on the ground. That's
Yeah.
been the most effective. And again, from a cost perspective, certainly that's there. But when you're building not to cheapen this, but when you're building this LTV,
Hmm.
like that's where it's at. I mean, the LTV on these relationships is really good, so it can afford that.
Yeah. Well, and serving or kind of delivering a product like yours, which is a little bit more complex, there's a longer sales cycle and it's higher value, like you said, that's going to take something like a very holistic marketing strategy. Like you can't just serve ads and expect it to work or just go to conferences and expect that to work. Like you need a digital side that is supporting and educating. So then when they do meet a salesperson, then they already have something in their head about what it is. And you can take those lists from the conferences that you go to and you can feed it into LinkedIn and Meta and you can target those people. And so all of those things I'm sure kind of work together for, like you said, a multi-touch approach. I think a lot of times when I talk to founders, they want one solution. We're like, what platform do we need to be on?
Mm.
And it's just investing in being kind of everywhere that your customers are and trying to talk to them as much as you can, and just trying to get in the same room with them, which sounds like what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and partnership strategies has been incredibly helpful as well because there's nothing better than you talking about your brand and getting that shelf space, so to speak, with the customer than another incredible brand talking about your brand. And so that, especially, early adopter kind of construction, doesn't necessarily want to adopt something new. That's been very powerful when, whether it's a technology partner, whether it's like an Amex who we just launched a partnership with, whether it's the supplier itself, which we launched a partnership with, that goes a long way.
Yeah. But
And
trust
a
kind of
lot
breeds
is like
trust. Yeah.
because a lot of those partners, I can't talk to every single customer, although we talk to a lot of
Right.
the I mean, I talk to a lot of customers, but I do talk to pretty much all the partner CEOs at some stage. So this like nod, because there's a reputation there of going, well, this guy knows the space. He's doing things that are healthy for the organization, he or she. And as opposed to sometimes you get other companies that are like, like that one is like, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they're well funded. Maybe I don't know about this one. But like people can make up their own mind. So when you get that, like call it the good person nod is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get a lot of referrals from your existing customers? So subcontractors referring their other subcontractor friends?
It's probably about 30%
Okay.
referral.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean a customer referral, but a
Right.
referral of some
From
some
someone.
sort is our new logo, about 30%.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
So kind of switching gears to more build as a company, as you guys have grown, have you had to adopt your own leadership style just as the company has scaled, while maintaining alignment with your mission?
Well, I own leadership style. It's really hard to fake leadership tactics. And it's funny. I was thinking about this morning. What drove this? I don't remember. But I think I was thinking from a team perspective how sometimes you just have natural leaders step up in a group of peers, and you're just like, whatever reason, they're just like the one, the
Yeah.
one everyone follows. That's not me. So in a group of my peers, let's say 8 people, I may not necessarily rise to like, oh, let's all follow Chris. Yet I am in a CEO role. So um, going through in my case 6 years in the business, I just can't fake who I am. I can't fake that I'm something I'm not. And so you really have to do a bit of soul searching there. Certainly continue to level up from we'll call that from an aperture standpoint of,
Mhm.
understand your biases, understand your blind spots, understand areas that you want to be sharper in, but you're not going to turn into something different. It just, it's too much stress. I don't have, 4 hours a day to like train up to this other thing that I'm not. And so you've got to embrace that. I'll probably say some cliche things around building, a team around you, but well, I say this all the time. The most important thing is that you trust your team, and I should say that differently. That your team has earned your trust, and that's their thing to earn, not mine. And just like it's my thing to earn their trust, And that's probably the most important thing, because regardless of, you know, how people would rate me as a leader, if they could all rate me as a 0, if I've earned their trust and vice versa, we can make
Right.
some like badass things happen. And
Yeah.
that's generally how we approach the business.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak from experience. You've hired some very brilliant people that are really passionate about the work that you do. And I think that also because I always say like you can't ask someone to be something that they're not. And not everybody gets to work for every company. So there are some people who just won't fit into Build, just like there are some people who just won't fit into Right Left Agency, my
Hmm.
agency.
Yep.
And but it's interesting to kind of turn that around and say like I can't ask myself to be someone I'm not. So I need to find ways to make my strengths work for leading this company without trying to turn into Steve Jobs or
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a nice little aspiration, right? It's like
Yeah,
I can get a little fired up when I hear from another CEO and I'm like, wow, I like
that's cool.
I'll take that little talk track.
Yeah.
But when you're in the trenches, like I can
Hmm.
talk track my way out of a lot of things in like little situations. But at the end of the day, it's like everyone knows my core,
Yeah.
right? Because like I just can't hide.
Right.
And so you have to recognize what that is, embrace it, and
Yeah.
just be like at some level with your teams, like you guys know, you know,
Yeah.
like
You signed up
well,
for
that
this.
means I'm not. So
Yeah. Do you how do you approach building a culture with Build? Because I actually got to visit your office a few months ago and it was such a cool space and you guys were having like AI talks and there was just this feeling of growth and innovation there. How would you describe your own culture?
probably the hardest question to answer. You know, I think any CEO has their hand on culture
Mhm.
quite a bit. And it's unfortunately like a little bit of soup without knowing what the like labels
Yeah.
on your ingredients.
Yeah. Hmm.
So sometimes, and you don't cause all of it, right? So it's
Right.
not like I determine the culture; it's what it is.
Hmm.
And sometimes you know grab the sugar and it's actually salt, and you're like, oh shoot. Um, so this is a really tough one. I'm really proud of our culture at times. I'm
Hmm.
extremely frustrated with it at other times.
Hmm.
And so it's like a little bit of this like kind of steering.
Yeah.
And you can feel quite helpless sometimes though when it's not what you envisioned and it's not what you want.
Hmm.
But back to blind spots, there are other times where you're like, you're being a dick. And you don't realize it. And
Right.
you need a culture of, you want to make sure you've adopted that culture of transparency, or sorry, openness, where someone
Yeah.
can say, hey, you're being a jerk here.
Right.
Um, so that's a really long way of saying I have no idea, right?
Well, I think what's interesting too is that you still very much are a startup. And so startup culture is such a unique thing that it's just constantly changing and you're figuring out what is salt and what is sugar. So I don't think you should be too hard on yourself around that because I think it's not something that settles into itself until you are kind of out of that startup mode.
Yeah.
Um, we kind of talked about this a little bit with you kind of going through COVID and that not seeming to affect too much, which is great. But do you have any practices that helps keep your team moving forward and resilient when there are kind of these really regular economic fluctuations and which seem to impact the construction industry quite a bit?
Well, I mean, this has been. I wouldn't. I'll just say it's been a struggle for us because there have been, you know, spans of months where we've not
Hmm.
grown yet. We've put a lot of compelling things in place to grow.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I could say that a little differently, but like that's the truth of it.
Hmm.
And it's like we're in Austin, very innovative town, a lot of amazing companies, a lot of great talent, a lot of technology companies, maybe that don't have the same burdens that we do
Hmm.
from a credit risk perspective and raising capital and being maybe a more attractive asset for venture capital. And that, that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
We've also had very ambitious goals. So we don't ever project flat growth. We
Hmm.
always project up. And so when you don't hit that, it can be discouraging. And we've spent a lot of time on this topic.
Yeah.
and making sure the team has the right motivation point forward, but also has the, I don't even know what you call it, the determination to continue
Yeah.
to pick up. We call it relentless,
Yeah. A little
which is a
grit.
core value, right?
Yeah.
And that's just really important. It's important when you're hiring too to say, look, you're not always going to win.
Yeah.
I think the way we present it now is like, look, I know I'm a winner. That sounds going to sound really confident. I am, and
Yeah.
I hire winners, and
Hmm.
I don't do all the hiring, but we hire winners,
Hmm.
and I don't need a scoreboard to always tell us that we're winning. We have a lot of conviction in the customer. We're solving problems for them.
Hmm.
I know every executive decision at my desk and how it's made and how those calls like those principles I would say, and I just feel really good about that. So do have to look in the mirror sometimes and go, look, we are done all this stuff and these amazing things. So yeah, the last 4 months haven't been great,
Yeah.
but like you got to refire yourself back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We,
I think every entrepreneur probably is looking at another company and going, "Dang,
yes.
I wish I would have hit that metric, right?" And maybe absent, a few super high flyers. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I like about that is that what you're doing is you're tackling self-doubt. A lot of people struggle with self-doubt, and especially people who are winners and people who are pursuing excellence always. It's always really easy to say, what can we do better? Which is good. That's healthy, especially when running a business. But reminding yourself that you wouldn't work here if you weren't qualified, if you weren't a winner. We wouldn't be here if we hadn't done all these amazing things. And honestly, you guys are disrupting an industry. You're creating something brand new. So obviously, there's not it's not going to be perfect all of the time. Um, but that relentlessness is so important to your culture, I bet.
yeah, and I think that's an example of some of the leadership stuff. Like this isn't something I would intuitively thought to remind people of.
Yeah.
And it is the role of the CEO to keep restating those. So that's not really a natural thing for me, but I've realized how important it is to make sure that everyone feels that kind of winning momentum, I would say. And it's like, hey, look where we're at. Again, and then you like I hear that from employees like, oh, Chris, like you kind of could use a little bit of this. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like I feel like I'm boring you guys. I'm always
Yeah.
happy to talk about this stuff. Um,
Yeah. Just kind of resharing that vision over and over
mhm,
again,
yep,
keep people
and
moving. Yeah. When you think about what's next for Build, it sounds like you've got a lot of things cooking, which is very exciting. Are there any emerging financing models or other things that you're exploring that you're going to be building out over the next few years for subcontractors?
yes. Uh,
Any that you care to share?
yeah, no, I look, it's we've had a important conversation with ourselves around what do we want to be.
Yeah.
Um, And what I mean by that is right now we have a few products. Our biggest revenue drivers right now are both financial products.
Mhm.
We have a lean services product which generates revenue, and then we have a couple of other technology products that we just give away for free. And there's different directions. We generally call this like the left turn or the right turn, which
Mhm.
are more like 10-degree turns that end up in a different position
Yeah.
altogether. And the best value we can create for our customer is really on solving the financing and payments.
Yeah.
And that is what we have a lot of experience, and we can create this triangulation. And what that means is opening up capital markets to just cheaper capital
Hmm.
of a risk that we know is there, but we've somewhat structured and flipped it on its head such that it performs the way maybe a mortgage asset or some other asset would.
Right.
And that is what we're really good at. That is in particular what I'm very good at.
Hmm.
And there is the look in the mirror moment there. I think I've used that twice now, where
It's
you say,
important.
is this where we want to go over the next 46 years? We've had that conversation with ourselves, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
So we don't we no longer have this pressure of we're going to become a SaaS company. Like we're going
Right.
to become a SaaS company and like
We're going
this
to do
other thing
everything.
will and get this
Yeah.
other multiple. It's like this is where we create value. This is what we're really good. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And just believe in our space. It's so our total addressable market we think of about 800 billion.
Hmm.
So we just think there's a lot of
A lot of room
growth
for growth.
opportunity between now and then.
Yeah, I think that takes so much self-control. A lot of founders will start to see some success and be like, we're really good at this. And I think we could be good at moving into other industries or expanding to be all things for subcontractors. But being able to say, no, we are going to focus on financing solutions. There's plenty of room to grow here. Let's not get distracted by the other stuff. Takes a lot of control. It takes a lot of focus. So I love that. I'm really excited to see kind of what you come up with next. I think it's gonna be really great.
Yeah, I think the struggle from a founder perspective is, and I have no answer, I'm just kind of calling out
Yeah.
maybe too, is that you get a lot of influence. You get a lot of influence from your investors, from potential investors, from your team. And a lot of times it contradicts. And a lot of times it goes a direction that you would draw up on a whiteboard as correct,
Yeah.
but if the business could really speak to you and whisper in your ear that it would say, no, that's the wrong way.
Yeah.
And there's this conviction, but it's tough because too much conviction and you're missing something. Too little
Right.
conviction and you're weak and you really can't bust through. So there's a like odd thing, and it can kind of like every day and every week can fluctuate. And I guess I'm sympathetic to other founders that have this dilemma of not always such a clear vision of how you grow the
Yeah.
business.
Do you attribute that to like intuition or just a gut feeling how to make those decisions?
I mean, I don't know. I think from a methodology standpoint, I first of all like to seek a lot of feedback
Yeah.
and then build the feedback on itself.
Hmm.
And then I like to sit on things and marinate
Yeah.
for sometimes quite a while, and then just always seek feedback. Um, and then it just it's a little bit of this like I think it should be this.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call that.
Yeah. I think that
Um,
is intuition of just saying something in me says that this is the right direction. And nobody knows the company better than the founders. So, you know,
it,
you should
I
make
think
that decision.
there is a measurement of conviction though. So
Hmm.
like sometimes you hear feedback from an investor or a potential investor. I get a lot of feedback from potential investors, right? So you're pitching your business. Every founder's pitching their business and every potential investor will give you thoughts and you're trying to sell to them. So that's like product feedback, like it is from a customer. So you want to incorporate that, but there's no conviction there. They're just like, yeah, this, right? You should do this. Then there's the board, which they have every motivation but maybe slightly less conviction because they don't kind of know. They're also waiting on this. They're looking for the CEO and their conviction, but it measures up a bit in the conviction, barometer. And then there's the team, right? And so measuring the intent behind the conviction is really important. So it's like, are you advocating for this because it's like of your self-interest, or are you just passionate about it? You've seen the problem, you have the vision, and it's like I better like get on board with this. Like that's real. I need to like adjust my way of thinking. Um, and then if you don't, then you have to temper, and you're like, well, I hear that, but this is actually what we're going to do. I mean, this is really what being a CEO is. At the end of the day, is like kind of measuring all this stuff up, and then getting your team to be aligned on which direction you're going, whether it's, whichever that direction is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also everyone has a very specific perspective, but as a CEO, you kind of have all of you know a lot more information than each individual contributor. So ultimately does come down to, okay, who's making the best arguments? Are there any trends between these things? And what do we want to do as a company? And just having that final say it can be a lot sometimes, but it seems like it's worked out pretty well for you so far.
Yeah, and I'm super envious of the companies that are like just do this and grow. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, okay, should just do that. Like a
Yeah.
box.com, and early it's like, oh, just say these things. You're competing with Dropbox. It's this thing,
Right.
it's this thing. Just hire more AEs and this. And it's like,
Right.
they don't have some of those like kind of pivot. We can't
Hmm.
just do several billion in material financing, like we really need to be a complement of different products, and sometimes this is like decisions that can be challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Um, you guys are mostly you're primarily in the US right now. You don't have any international
Yeah,
business at the
yeah,
moment.
all U.S. Yeah.
Are you planning on going global at any point in the future?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
From M&A perspective, potentially something would be there at
Mhm.
some point. But I don't see any foreseeable global activity. No.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes, again, a lot of control to say we do this well. We know the United States very well because I'm sure in other countries it's just a completely different landscape than in the US.
Yeah, I mean, some of the principles are the same, Canada, Australia, Europe, but
Hmm.
the challenges of, maybe Canada is not as challenging, but the time zone, the how you enter a
Yeah,
market,
right.
what do the partners look like? It's probably unnecessary risk given our
Yeah.
current trajectory
Hmm.
and opportunity with a U.S. market.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Well, to wrap up here, I always ask this question. If you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting out Build, what would it be?
Um, oh gosh. I think it's going to be hard. And it's going to be harder than you think. And
Hmm.
I think that I know that this journey is very, very hard, and it's like soul crushingly hard
Yeah.
um, at times. And I'm kind of thinking of that question of what my future self would say to me now.
Yeah.
I think that is the best advice because we're just doing hard things, and I know every founder is faced with the same thing.
Yeah.
These are not easy decisions, and sometimes even the right decision feels wrong.
Hmm.
And our my coach always said, we have like a CEO coach that we work with is great.
Hmm.
He always says, gosh, I can't remember the phrase now, but you're setting the journey. You're basically projecting out front, like, hey, when you climb the mountain, you're going to lose a little. You're going to be gasping for
Yeah.
oxygen,
Hmm.
and having that comfort going into it would have been helpful at some of these moments and maybe
Yeah.
cause a little less frustration, but also give him like continued to power this conviction on moving forward.
Yeah. So just brace yourself. But it's worth it. I think that's where you should end it. It's worth it.
Yeah. So, no, I think it will be.
Amazing. Well, where can people find you online if they're interested in Build or interested in learning more about you?
Yeah. I mean, pretty simple build.com, BILLD.com, which is probably the best name to ever
It
exist.
is
It
such
is a
a
good
good
name.
name. It
Yeah.
really is so perfect.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story on our name.
Yeah.
That wasn't our name when we first started.
Oh, okay.
And we actually registered under a different name, and then a few months in, maybe even like 30 days in, we caught attention of a global brand that had a sub product deep in the basement that was named the same thing. And it was not, they didn't come to us, but we saw it and we were like, maybe we should reach out and just say, is this okay? We did. And global brands don't give permission for anything. So we were like, shoot, we got to rename the company. And it's kind of a secret how me and Jesse came up with the name that neither one of us will ever tell. But we came up with it, and as soon as it came up, we were like, "That's it," and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, a brilliant name and also speaks to like that was probably really hard naming your company and then finding out, a month later that it was someone else's company and then having to quickly come up with something new. But that's exactly what you needed to get to Build, which is again one of my favorite brand names.
And getting the domain was a whole nother experience and story. But I guess it was a couple years in, we ended up getting it, which was this like super crazy story of this was BILD.com.
Hmm.
Again, another plug for our website there. But the owner was a Bill
Okay.
D. Last name started with a D, and
Okay.
wealthy individual in the U.S.
Hmm.
And we found him based on an old Fiverr,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
a Fiverr handle that was connect, because we couldn't find, it was
Right.
like whatever the privacy stuff.
Everything was, hidden.
And we finally found them, and we reached out and said, look, we'd like to acquire, and we said, well, we'll pay like $10,000. It was like, and I knew the way he answered was like, this guy was worth tens of millions. And he's like, and I saw the address, we kind of picked up on that.
Yeah.
He's like, I really like having this, this email domain. It's how I get all my emails. And so I've got this like super millionaire guy that loves his email. And so I sent him an email, a letter, and I just poured my heart out. I said, everything I have is in this business, my heart, my soul, my everything. This is what our mission, this is what we're all about.
Yeah.
Please, you'd be like solving so many things for us if you would sell the domain. And he responded, look, I'll do it. And for $10,000, that was nominal
Nothing
for
to him. Yeah.
and it's kind of like I had to give him a reasonable offer. And so we got the
Right.
domain, and, now we're legit, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter our revenue. We have our own domain.
I love a little bit of humanity within
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I need to find that letter.
Yeah, you should. That's a really good story. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. I really appreciate your time here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Of course. And thank you everyone at home for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave us a review. If there's anything you'd like to hear on an upcoming episode, just let us know. For more insights and behind the scenes stories, follow us on LinkedIn or visit rightleftagency.com. And we'll be back next week with more stories of success, innovation, and marketing strategies to help you grow. See you on the next one.